去美元化是当今世界的热门话题，很多人都在问同样的问题：美元什么时候会失去它的地位？作为世界主要货币，它真的能在不久的将来被取代吗？根据马凯硕教授的说法，这不是是不是的问题，而是何时发生的问题。他对这个重大转变有一些有趣的见解，让我们听听马凯硕教授的高见。
Shift.
Well, that's a great question, but a very difficult question. When you deal, I have to emphasize that when you deal with issues, especially in the financial sector, they are very complex, and it's difficult to summarize them or to try and put them down in simple terms. But nonetheless, I'll try to describe the various issues about the US dollar in very simple terms. The first point I would make is that the US dollar has been the global reserve currency, I think, for about 130 years or so, since the United States emerged as the #1 power in the world in the 1890s. And I can confidently predict that the US dollar will remain the global reserve currency for at least another 2 or 3 decades. Why do I say that? Because it's very difficult to create an alternative to the US dollar. Now, traditionally, the currency of the world's largest power, remember before US it was the United Kingdom, then the British pound was the global reserve currency, and then it went to US dollar becoming the global reserve currency. So in the same way, when China becomes #1, right, in 10, 15 years, whenever, in theory, the renminbi should become the global reserve currency. But it will be very difficult because China doesn't allow what they call free flow of movement in the capital account. Now you'll have to go and look at your economics textbooks to find out what a capital account and so on and so forth. But anyway, at the end of the day, because of that constraint, the renminbi is not going to replace the US dollar anytime soon. And as a result of that, the United States will retain that leverage, and having the dollar as the global reserve currency gives tremendous power to the United States. So for example, I'll give you a very simple example. Many years ago, a French bank, and France is a friend of the United States, okay? Good friend of the United States. A French bank financed some trade between France and Iran. The United States was not involved. But because the trade between France and Iran was done through US dollars, that violated an American law. Because it violated an American law, the French bank had to pay a fine of $9 billion. The largest fine in human history. So you can see this. France and Iran didn't break any international laws, but France had to pay a fine of $9 billion to the United States. That's the power of the US dollar, okay? You can get a country like France to pay a big fine. That's power. And I don't see that diminishing anytime soon. But at the same time, I do think, and this is a fact, the United States has been weaponizing the US dollar. Again, to explain how weaponization means, I encourage you to go and just Google and download a few articles. By weaponizing the US dollar, more and more countries want to reduce their trade dependence on the US dollar. So for example, now Saudi Arabia is prepared to sell oil to China, and instead of getting paid in US dollars, which the Saudis used to insist on, now Saudi Arabia says, I'll accept Chinese renminbi. And then of course that will progressively reduce the dependence on the US dollar. But the total amount of money used in global trade is a tiny fraction of the amount of money that's used in financial transactions. And therefore, even if the role of the US dollar in global trade goes down, the role of the US dollar in global financial transactions is not going down. And therefore, the de-dollarization is not going to happen anytime soon.
关于去美元化问题，一个关键因素是美国自身的经济状况。美国的国家债务已经超过35万亿美元。随着政治僵局的频繁发生，一些国家和投资者开始怀疑美元的长期稳定性。尽管它仍被视为最安全的货币，但不断上升的债务和经济不确定性可能会逐渐削弱这种信任。美国潜在的债务违约令全球投资者纷纷减持美债，但去美元化是一个过程，不会在一夜之间发生。